Out here, stopping for someone else could cost you your life. The wind didn't howl. It scraped, like metal dragged across glass, thin and sharp against the frozen plains. -40 degrees, maybe lower with the gusts. Logan Pierce didn't bother checking his wrist display anymore. Numbers didn't matter when the cold felt the same at any digit, like needles finding every seam in your suit, like the air itself wanted inside your lungs just to steal the heat. His boots crunched through a crust of ice that hadn't seen a footprint in weeks, maybe months. Good. That meant no one else was stupid enough to be out here. He adjusted the strap of his thermal pack and kept moving, steady, efficient. Inhale. For steps. Exhale. For steps. Don't waste energy. Don't look around. Don't stop. That was Rule 1. Rule 1 kept you alive. The outpost was still half a mile ahead. If the coordinates hadn't drifted again, and he could already feel the power cells in his suit dipping below optimal. Another hour out here, and even the insulation would start to fail. He pushed forward, eyes locked on the faint silhouette of jagged metal structures breaking the white horizon. Then something flickered at the edge of his visor. A glitch, he thought at first. The storm played tricks sometimes, bending light, distorting shapes. He kept walking. Rule 1. But the flicker came again. A color that didn't belong in a world of white and gray. Blue. Logan slowed. Just for a second. His suit chimed softly. Unidentified life form detected. He swore under his breath and kept moving. Not his problem. Couldn't be. Out here, anything alive was either already dead or about to be. He took 5 more steps. 10. The wind picked up, pushing against his back like it wanted him gone. Good. Let it. He exhaled, steady, forcing his legs to keep rhythm. Then he stopped. No warning. No reason. Just stopped. The silence inside his helmet pressed harder than the storm outside. He closed his eyes for a beat. Not your problem, he muttered. His voice sounded smaller than he expected. He turned his head slightly, just enough for the visor to catch the shape again. Half buried in the snow. Slender. Still. The blue. Wasn't fabric. It was skin. Logan clenched his jaw. Could be a trap. Could be a corpse. Could be something that would drain the last of his heat and leave him frozen 10 feet from safety. He knew the math. Knew the outcome. He'd walked past worse before. People worse. He took another step forward. Then another. Each one heavier than the last. The wind howled louder, like it had something to say about it. He stopped again. Damn it, he breathed. Slowly, like the motion itself might change his mind, Logan turned around. The figure lay where he'd seen it. Unmoving. Almost erased by drifting snow. Up close, the detail sharpened. A young female form. Blue skin, faintly luminous even under frost. No visible armor. No heat signature strong enough to matter. If she was alive, she wouldn't be for long. Logan stood there, the storm pressing in, the outpost somewhere behind him, warmth just within reach if he walked away now. His suit chimed again, softer this time, almost like a warning. Energy conservation critical. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, with a slow exhale, he dropped his pack to the ground and stepped closer. The snow resisted him, shifting under his boots as if it wanted to swallow every step he took back toward her. Logan crouched beside the figure, his breath fogging the inside of his visor for a split second before the suit cleared it. Up close, the blue of her skin was not uniform. It shimmered faintly, like light moving beneath the surface, even as frost clung to her arms and shoulders. He hesitated, just for a moment, then reached out and brushed snow away from her face. Cold. Too cold. But not rigid. Not yet. You are still here, he muttered, more to himself than to her. His glove hovered over her neck, unsure what he was even trying to feel. The suit chimed softly again. Minimal life activity detected. Barely alive. Logan exhaled slowly, the sound steady, controlled. That was worse somehow. If she had been gone, he could have walked away clean. No decision. No cost. He glanced over his shoulder toward the distant outpost, barely visible now through the thickening storm. Half a mile. Maybe less. With her, it might as well have been. 10. Bad call, he whispered, already knowing it was too late to take it back. He shrugged off his outer thermal layer, the one piece he could not afford to lose, and draped it over her carefully. The suit protested immediately, a warning flickering across his display as the internal temperature dipped a few degrees. He ignored it. Come on, he said quietly, sliding one arm beneath her shoulders. She was lighter than he expected. That made it worse too. Fragile, as if the storm could take her without effort. He lifted her slowly, adjusting her weight against his chest, feeling the faintest hint of warmth through the layers of his suit. Or maybe that was just his imagination trying to justify the choice. Either way, he tightened his grip and stood. The wind hit them harder now, pushing against his side, dragging at the edges of the thermal wrap. Logan leaned into it, planting each step with deliberate care. One foot down, then the next. The rhythm was gone. This was slower, heavier, every movement calculated. You picked the wrong place to take a nap, he said under his breath, his voice low, almost steady. No response. Of course not. Her head rested against his shoulder, unmoving, strands of frost-covered hair brushing against the collar of his suit. The blue glow of her skin pulsed faintly again, so subtle he almost missed it. His visor flickered for a second, then stabilized. Logan frowned but kept moving. Probably interference. This place was full of it. Nothing worked the way it should out here. Another step. The suit chimed again. Energy levels decreasing. Estimated survival time reduced. He did not need the reminder. He could feel it. The cold creeping in, slow and patient, finding the places where his protection was weakest. His fingers stiffened slightly inside the gloves. He tightened his hold on her instinctively. Yeah, I hear you, he muttered. The outpost came into view again, a dark shape against the endless white. Closer now. Not close enough. He kept his eyes on it, using it as a fixed point, something to move toward instead of thinking about what he had just traded away. Behind his visor, his jaw clenched. This was not strategy. This was not survival. This was something else. Something he had not allowed himself in a long time. The wind howled again, louder, sharper, as if arguing with him. Logan did not answer. He just kept walking. The outpost door did not welcome him. It groaned, slow and reluctant, as if the metal itself had forgotten what it was built for. Logan slammed his shoulder against the manual override plate, and the mechanism finally gave with a dull hiss. A wave of stale, cold air greeted him from inside, barely warmer than the storm behind him, but it was shelter. That was enough. He stepped through and kicked the door shut behind him, sealing out the wind in a single heavy thud. Silence followed. Not complete, but close. Just the faint hum of dying systems and the quiet rasp of his own breathing. Logan stood there for a second, adjusting to the stillness, then lowered her carefully onto the floor near the central console. The metal beneath her was cold, but not lethal. Not like outside. You made it, he said, though his voice sounded distant even to himself. His hands lingered for a moment before pulling away, reluctant in a way he did not fully understand. The suit chimed again. Critical energy threshold approaching. He ignored it and moved quickly, stripping off what remained of his outer gear and tossing it aside. The interior lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the small space. He crossed to the console and slammed his palm against the activation panel. Nothing. He hit it again, harder. A faint glow answered this time, followed by a sluggish system boot. Come on, he muttered, eyes flicking back to her. She had not moved, not even a twitch. He forced his attention back to the console, navigating through lagging menus with stiff fingers. Heat. He needed heat. The generator sputtered when he engaged it, a low, uneven vibration that traveled through the floor. For a moment, it sounded like it would die completely. Then, slowly, it steadied. A weak current of warm air began to push through the vents. Not much, but enough. Logan exhaled, tension easing just slightly. He grabbed a thermal blanket from a storage compartment and returned to her side, wrapping it around her with careful, deliberate movements. Up close, he could see the frost melting along her skin, tiny droplets forming and sliding away. That faint glow was still there, subtle but persistent, like something beneath the surface refusing to fade. You are tougher than you look, he said quietly. No response. He sat back on his heels, watching her for a long moment. The silence stretched, filled only by the soft hum of the struggling generator. Then something changed. It was small, easy to miss. Her fingers moved, just slightly. Logan froze, his eyes locking onto the motion. Another second passed. Then her chest rose a little deeper than before, a breath that was not just reflex. That is new, he murmured. He leaned closer, studying her face. The frost had cleared enough to reveal more detail now. Smooth features, Closed eyes. Stillness that felt controlled, not empty. His suit flickered again, the display glitching for half a second before stabilizing. Logan frowned. That was not the cold. That was something else. He glanced at the console, then back at her. The faint blue light beneath her skin pulsed once more, a little stronger this time. Not random. Not failing. Intentional. Logan leaned back slowly, a different kind of awareness settling in. Yeah, he said under his breath, quieter now, more cautious. You are not just surviving, are you? The generator hummed on, steady but fragile, and the room seemed to hold its breath with him. The room warmed by degrees so small they barely registered, but Logan felt them anyway, like a memory returning instead of a change in temperature. He stayed where he was, seated across from her, elbows resting on his knees, watching, not waiting for her to wake, waiting to understand. The faint blue glow beneath her skin pulsed again, steady now, like a heartbeat that did not match the rhythm of her breathing. Too controlled, too precise. You are listening, he said quietly. Not a question. The words hung in the air between them, absorbed by the dull metal walls. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then her fingers moved again. This time, not a reflex. A deliberate shift, slight but undeniable. Logan did not reach for his tools, did not move closer. He just watched. Her eyes opened slowly, not with confusion or panic, but with a calm awareness that felt out of place in a body that had been frozen minutes ago. They were not human eyes. The color was deeper, layered, like light refracting through water. She looked straight at him, not around the room, not at the ceiling, at him. Logan held her gaze, his expression neutral, controlled. That is faster than expected, he said. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out at first. Instead, her eyes moved, taking in the space, the walls, the dim light, the generator hum. Assessing, calculating. Then they returned to him. You carried me, she said. Her voice was soft, but clear. No strain, no weakness. Logan let out a slow breath through his nose. Yeah, he replied. Bad habit. Her gaze lingered on him, studying in a way that felt almost clinical. You were instructed not to engage, she continued. Logan's eyes narrowed slightly. By who, he asked. She did not answer that. Instead, she shifted, pushing herself up with a smooth, controlled motion that did not match someone recovering from exposure to extreme cold. The thermal blanket slipped slightly from her shoulders, but she did not seem to notice or care. Logan straightened a little, not tense, but ready. You were not dying, he said. Not accusing, just stating it. She tilted her head a fraction, considering him. I was simulating failure, she replied. The words were careful, chosen. Logan gave a short, humorless breath. Of course you were. The generator hummed louder for a second, then settled again. The sound filled the space between them. Why, he asked. She did not answer immediately. Her gaze drifted past him, toward the sealed door, toward the storm beyond it. Then back again. To observe, she said. Logan nodded once, slowly. That tracked. Nothing out here happened without a reason. And what did you get? He asked. She studied him again, more closely this time, as if comparing him to something unseen. Most species prioritize self-preservation above all else, she said. They calculate. They conserve. They continue walking. Logan's jaw tightened slightly. Yeah, he said. That sounds about right. Her eyes did not leave his. You did not. The words were simple. No judgment. No praise. Just fact. Logan looked away for a second, toward the dim console, the flickering lights, anything but her. I almost did, he said. When he looked back, she was still watching him, still measuring. But something had shifted. Subtle, like the smallest crack in ice that had been solid moments before. Almost, she repeated softly. The word lingered, as if it mattered more than the rest. Logan leaned back slightly, exhaling. So what now, he asked. You got your observation. You going to tell me what I just signed up for? For the first time, something like hesitation crossed her expression. Not weakness, not fear, something else. Then she said, quietly, you changed the result. Logan did not answer right away. He let her words sit in the air, turning them over in his mind the way he would a broken piece of machinery, looking for the fault line, the hidden function. Changed what result? He finally asked, his voice low, steady. She shifted slightly where she sat, the blanket falling further from her shoulders, but the cold no longer seemed to touch her. The faint blue glow beneath her skin pulsed once, then settled into something even, controlled. This environment, she said, her gaze drifting briefly toward the walls, the failing lights, the hum of the generator. It is not random. It is a controlled scenario. Variables are introduced. Subjects respond. Outcomes are recorded. Logan gave a small, dry exhale. So I walked into a test. Yes, she replied. No hesitation. No apology. Just confirmation. Logan nodded once, slow. That explained the interference. The glitching systems. The way nothing out here behaved like it should. And the expected outcome, he continued, was me walking past you. She looked back at him. Correct. The word landed flat, heavy in its simplicity. Logan leaned back against the cold metal wall, folding his arms loosely across his chest. Let me guess, he said. Most do. All do, she corrected quietly. That made him pause. Not long. Just enough for the weight of it to settle. All, he repeated. She inclined her head slightly. Across multiple species. Across repeated trials. The decision is consistent. Logan stared at her for a moment, then looked away again, his gaze settling on the flickering console. Yeah, he said. That tracks too. The generator stuttered for a second, then recovered, the sound uneven but persistent. He listened to it, grounding himself in something familiar. Machines made sense. They failed for reasons you could fix. This was something else. So what happens now? He asked after a moment. Test over. You log your data. I go back to pretending this place makes sense. She did not answer immediately. Her eyes stayed on him, studying, but not in the same detached way as before. There was something else there now. Something quieter. The scenario was designed to measure a threshold, she said. The point at which self-preservation overrides external consideration. Logan let out a short breath. Sounds like you already had your answer. We did, she said. Until you stopped. He rubbed a hand across the back of his neck, feeling the stiffness there. Yeah, well, he muttered. Do not build your whole system around one bad decision. It was not inefficient, she said. He glanced at her, one brow lifting slightly. No, she continued, more slowly now. It was inconsistent. Logan almost smiled at that. You say that like it is a problem. It is, she replied. Then, after a brief pause, she added, it is also new. The words seemed to hang there, uncertain in a way that did not match the rest of her tone. Logan studied her again, more carefully this time. You have a name, he said. Not a question. She held his gaze for a second, then answered, Lyra Vey. He nodded once. Logan Pierce. Another small pause. You already knew that, he added. A faint shift touched her expression. Yes, she said. I did. The generator hummed, the lights flickered, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Logan pushed himself up from the wall, moving toward the console again. Well, Lyra, he said, his voice returning to something more grounded, more familiar. Your test is still going to kill both of us if I do not fix that power draw. He tapped the panel, bringing up the failing system readouts. So unless part of your observation includes watching me freeze, you might want to help. Behind him, there was a brief silence. Then, softly, almost thoughtfully, she said, I would like to see what happens next. Logan leaned over the console, fingers moving slower now, not from hesitation but from the cold that had settled deeper into his joints. The interface lagged with every input, lines of dim orange text flickering across the cracked display as if the system itself was deciding whether it was worth staying alive. Power routing is shot, he muttered, half to himself. Something upstream is bleeding energy. He tapped again, pulling up a degraded schematic of the outpost grid. Most of it was dark. Dead nodes. Failed relays. Only a few lines still pulsed faintly, like veins barely carrying blood. Behind him, he could feel her presence shift. Not loud, not sudden, just there. A quiet awareness that had not existed minutes ago. This structure was not part of the original test parameters, Lyra said. Her voice was calm, but there was a slight change in it now, something closer to curiosity than observation. Logan did not turn. Yeah, well, neither was me carrying you in here, he replied. Guess we are both off script. He crouched lower, pulling open a side panel beneath the console. The metal resisted, then gave with a dull snap. Inside, the wiring was worse than he expected. Frost had crept along the conduits, thin crystals forming around exposed connectors. Great, he breathed. Freezing damage. He reached in, carefully adjusting a loose coupling, his gloves stiff but precise. The generator hum wavered for a second, then steadied slightly. Not fixed, but better. You are attempting repair, Lyra said. I am attempting not to die, Logan answered flatly. Repair just happens to be part of that. There was a brief pause behind him. Then, quieter, your survival probability would increase if you conserved energy instead. Logan let out a short breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Yeah, he said. That would also mean not picking you up out there. He tightened a connector, the metal biting faintly against his glove. Already past that checkpoint. Silence followed, but it felt different now. Not empty. Watching. Logan adjusted another line, rerouting what little power remained toward the heating system. The vents responded with a slightly stronger push of warm air, still weak, but enough to feel against his neck. He leaned back on his heels, assessing. It will hold, he said. For a while. He finally turned to face her. She was standing now. Not unsteady. Not recovering. Fully balanced. The thermal blanket draped loosely around her like it was optional. The faint blue light beneath her skin had evened out completely, no longer flickering. Stable. Controlled. Logan studied her for a second, then nodded once. Yeah, he said quietly. You were never in danger. Lyra met his gaze without flinching. The environment was lethal, she replied. Your decision altered that outcome. Logan shook his head slightly. No, he said. It delayed it. He gestured toward the console. This place is still failing. You said it yourself. Controlled scenario. Limited variables. That includes time. Her eyes shifted briefly to the console, then back to him. Correct. So unless your people are planning to reset the board, Logan continued, we are both still inside it. Another pause. This one longer. Then she asked, why continue? Logan blinked once. What? You have identified the parameters, she said. You understand the inefficiency. Why continue to expend effort? Logan stared at her for a moment, then looked away, running a hand across his face. The cold had not left him. Not really. It lingered, a reminder of every choice he had made in the last hour. Because stopping halfway does not fix anything, he said finally. Because if I am in it, I finish it. He glanced back at her. And because leaving things broken just so I can last a little longer. He let the sentence trail off, then gave a small shake of his head. That is not how I do things. Lyra watched him in silence, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then, very slightly, something shifted. Not confusion. Not agreement. Something else. Your species defines completion differently, she said. Logan gave a faint, tired smirk. Yeah, he replied. We define a lot of things differently. The generator hummed. The vents pushed a little warmer, and for the first time since he stepped inside, the cold felt negotiable. The warmth in the room held, but only barely, like a promise that could be taken back at any moment. Logan stood near the console, eyes scanning the dim readouts, tracking every fluctuation in the system as if watching a heartbeat that did not belong to him. We are still losing power, he said quietly. Slow but steady. The generator answered with a low vibration, uneven, like it was agreeing. Behind him, Lyra moved closer, her steps silent against the metal floor. He noticed it without turning. There is a boundary, she said. Logan glanced over his shoulder. A what? A limit to the scenario, she continued. Time. Energy. Environmental tolerance. When one threshold is crossed, the system concludes. Logan turned fully now, leaning one hand against the console. Concludes what? She held his gaze. Failure. The word sat heavier than the cold ever had. Logan nodded once, slow. Yeah, he said. Figured as much. He looked back at the display, then tapped into a deeper system layer, forcing the interface to reveal what it was trying to hide. The screen flickered, lines distorting for a second before stabilizing. A timer appeared. Not large. Not obvious. But there. Counting down. His jaw tightened. That was not there before, he said. It was always there, Lyra replied. You did not have access. Logan let out a quiet breath. I love that. He studied the numbers. Not long. Not enough to make mistakes. He pushed off the console and moved toward the generator housing, dropping to one knee as he pulled another panel loose. The metal groaned, resisting, then gave way. Inside, the core unit glowed faintly, its output unstable. If I reroute the remaining power directly to heat and life support, he said, more to himself now. I can stretch this. Maybe. Lyra watched him closely. At the cost of other systems. At the cost of everything else, Logan corrected. Lights, sensors, comms. All of it. He reached in, adjusting a control node. The heat from the core barely enough to warm his glove. We survive longer, he added. That is the goal, correct? She asked. Logan paused. Just for a second. Then he shook his head. No, he said. That is the assumption. He made another adjustment, and the generator surged slightly, the vents pushing warmer air into the room. The lights dimmed further, shadows stretching along the walls. Lyra's gaze shifted with the change, tracking the environment as it responded to his decisions. You are sacrificing visibility, she noted. Yeah, Logan said. We do not need to see everything. Just enough. He sat back slightly, studying the new configuration. The timer still counted down. Slower now, but still moving. Always moving. There is another threshold, Lyra said after a moment. Logan glanced at her. There always is. She stepped closer, her voice quieter now, more focused. The scenario does not only measure survival. It measures choice under constraint. Logan frowned slightly. Meaning the system will introduce pressure, she said. To force a decision. Logan's eyes flicked back to the console. And if I do not play along, then the system escalates, she replied. He stared at the timer again, then at the flickering readouts. The hum of the generator shifted, just slightly. Enough to notice. Yeah, he said under his breath. There it is. A new alert blinked onto the screen. Not loud, not dramatic, just present. External temperature dropping further. Structural integrity beginning to degrade. The storm outside was intensifying. Logan exhaled slowly, a thin stream of breath in the dim light. So it pushes, he said, until something breaks. Lyra did not answer immediately. Then, softly, until something reveals itself. Logan looked at her, really looked this time. Not as a variable, not as a problem to solve. Something else. Then he nodded once. All right, he said. Then let us see what it is trying to reveal. The alert did not escalate with sound. It did not need to. The change was in the air itself. The faint warmth that had begun to settle inside the outpost thinned, like it was being pulled away from them, inch by inch. Logan felt it. First along his hands, a subtle return of stiffness that had not been there seconds ago. He looked at the console. The numbers confirmed it. External temperature dropping beyond previous limits. Structural loss accelerating. The system was tightening the scenario. Pressure, he said quietly. You were right. Lyra stood still, her gaze fixed on the display, but her expression had shifted again. Not curiosity now. Something closer to recognition. The scenario is advancing, she said. Logan exhaled slowly and moved back to the generator, dropping down and pulling the panel fully open this time. The internal glow flickered harder now, unstable, reacting to the increased demand. We are not going to outrun this, he muttered. Not by stretching time. He adjusted another control, watching the output spike briefly before settling lower than before. It is forcing a choice, Lyra said. Logan gave a faint nod. Yeah, he replied. It always does. He leaned back slightly, eyes scanning the system layout. There it was. The split. One line feeding heat and internal systems. Another barely active line connected to an external relay node. Dormant. Underpowered. But still there. Two options, he said. Keep everything inside running as long as possible. He tapped the first line. Or divert what is left to the external relay. Lyra followed his motion. What is the function of the relay? Logan glanced at her. It could trigger a signal, he said. Or open a secondary system. Maybe even force a scenario override. He paused. Or it could do nothing. And the cost, she asked. Logan did not answer immediately. He looked back at the display, at the energy drain, at the timer still counting down. Then he said, if I divert power, the heat goes with it. The room seemed colder just hearing the words. Lyra's eyes shifted, processing. Survival probability decreases. Logan let out a quiet breath. A lot. Silence settled between them, heavy but not empty. The generator hummed, uneven, waiting. This is the decision point, Lyra said softly. Logan gave a small nod. Yeah, he replied. This is where your system expects me to choose myself. He rested one hand against the edge of the console, fingers tapping lightly, not from nerves but from thought. And if you do not, she asked. Logan glanced at her. There was something different in his expression now. Not defiance. Not recklessness. Something steadier. Then I do not, he said simply. He turned back to the panel and began rerouting the remaining power, his movements deliberate, controlled. The system resisted, warning indicators flashing briefly before fading as the override took hold. The generator surged once, then dipped sharply. The vents slowed. The already weak warmth began to fade. Lyra watched the change, her gaze moving from the console to Logan, then back again. You are committing, she said. Yeah, Logan answered. I am. The external relay line flickered to life, a faint pulse traveling outward into the storm beyond the walls. The room dimmed further, the last stable light fading into a low glow. The cold returned, quiet but certain. Logan sat back slightly, exhaling as he watched the system stabilize in its new state. Now we see what happens, he said. Lyra remained still, her eyes fixed on him, something unspoken forming behind them. Then, very quietly, she said, this was not an expected outcome. Logan gave a faint, tired smile. Yeah, he replied. You keep saying that. The relay pulsed again, stronger this time, sending its signal into the white void outside. And for the first time since the scenario began, the system hesitated. The system did not respond immediately. It did not collapse, and it did not recover. It paused. The relay pulsed again, a steady signal pushing outward into the storm. And for a moment the entire outpost felt like it was waiting for something beyond its walls to answer. Logan sat still, watching the console, his breath slow, controlled, though the cold had returned in full. The vents now barely whispered, and the air inside the room felt thin, stripped of the fragile comfort it once held. That is new, he said quietly. Lyra did not look at the console this time. She was watching him, not as a subject, not as a variable. Something had shifted past that point. The system is recalibrating, she said. Logan let out a faint breath. That turned to vapor for a second before fading. Good, he replied. Means it is not as sure of itself as it thought. The timer on the display flickered. For a brief second, the numbers distorted, stretching, compressing, then stabilizing again. But not the same. Slower. Not much, but enough to notice. Logan's eyes narrowed slightly. You see that? He asked. Yes, Lyra answered. The constraint has changed. Logan leaned back against the console, the metal cold even through his suit. So your system does not just measure, he said. It learns. Lyra was silent for a moment. Then, quietly, it adapts. Outside, something shifted in the storm. Not a sound. Not exactly. More like a change in pressure, a subtle easing of the constant force that had been pressing against the structure since he arrived. Logan noticed it without turning. That is also new, he said. The relay pulsed again, stronger now, and the external readings began to stabilize. Not warming, but no longer dropping. The outpost stopped losing ground. It simply held. Logan let out a slow breath, tension easing just slightly in his shoulders. That is enough, he murmured. We can work with enough. He pushed himself upright, moving back to the console, adjusting the power flow again. Careful now, precise. With the pressure reduced, even a small redistribution made a difference. The vents responded, a faint return of warmth brushing against the back of his neck. Not much, but real. Lyra watched the changes, her gaze moving between the system and Logan's hands, following the cause and effect. You are stabilizing the scenario, she said. Logan shook his head slightly. No, he replied. I am meeting it halfway. He paused, then added. Turns out that works better. The generator hummed more evenly now, the flicker in the lights softening into a dim but steady glow. The timer continued to count down, but it no longer felt like a threat. Just a measure. Just time. Lyra stepped closer, her presence no longer distant, no longer separate. She stood beside him, looking at the console, then at him. Your action forced a deviation, she said. Logan glanced at her. Yeah, he replied. Guess your system was. Not ready for that. She held his gaze, and for the first time, there was no calculation behind it. No assessment. Just something quiet. It was not, she said. A long silence followed. Not empty. Not tense. Just there. The storm outside had softened to a distant whisper, the outpost holding its ground against it. Logan rested his hands lightly on the console, feeling the steady vibration beneath his palms. So what happens when your system finishes learning? He asked. Lyra did not answer right away. She looked at the display, at the stabilized readings, at the timer that no longer dictated the outcome. Then she looked back at him. It records, she said. Logan gave a small nod. And then, another pause. This one longer. Then, quietly, it remembers. Logan let out a faint breath, something almost like a laugh, though softer. Good, he said. Then remember this. He turned slightly, meeting her eyes one last time, the dim light reflecting in them both. Not everything worth doing makes sense on paper. Lyra held his gaze, and something in her expression shifted in a way that no system could have predicted. Then she said, softly, almost to herself, in a system built on certainty, you chose uncertainty. The relay pulsed one final time, and far above the storm, something unseen acknowledged it. The light steadied. The cold eased just enough. And in the quiet that followed, the scenario did not end. It simply understood.